And we're live. Live. Hey folks, I had a slight technical difficulty, so I was kind of still having some technical difficulties. But anyway, uh, but we're here. Please let me know if you can hear me. I'm testing out this new clip-on mic. Since I've had some complaints about audio and I don't want to have to scream to be able to be heard. So if you can't hear me, do hit me up and let me know in the comments. Today, actually, we do not start with coffee. I have switched to tea. I'm on day 12 of no coffee. Every once in a while, when I feel my coffee consumption is getting out of control, I try to tone it down. So yeah, we're on day 12 and essentially trying to switch to tea. And yes, I know tea also has caffeine, but today's tea is oolong tea, which is one of my favorites actually. Most people think I don't drink tea, but I do love oolong tea. I also love Darjeeling and chai. Um, and oolong, the fact of today for this particular hot drink, because that's what I'm gonna have to call it from now on, is that a cup of brewed oolong actually contains small amounts of calcium, magnesium, and potassium. Generally, to go back to the caffeine bit, it contains less caffeine than coffee. So, like an 8 ounce cup of oolong typically has like 30 to maybe 50 milligrams of caffeine, while the same serving size of coffee contains 95 to 165 milligrams of caffeine. And as someone who, I'm sure if you see me in Parliament, you've seen me down at least 4 to 5 cups in one public meeting or central committee, that's a lot of caffeine. So I wanted to just give myself that challenge. So yeah, today I'm dealing with a bit of a caffeine withdrawal headache. Hopefully the tea can kind of start to knock that out. But yeah, let's get going into the stream topics for today. So in terms of meetings, we didn't have much going on in Parliament. It was Carnival, so there were a couple of holidays in between, and we had one meeting really, which was to approve the credentials of the incoming members of Parliament, Mr. Reginald Bruch and Mr. Viren Kotai. Uh, that meeting was meant to happen last week Thursday. It did not happen due to no quorum. MP Weaver had given notice a couple weeks ago about travel. So she was off island, and then we were not able to. Others had issues that they needed to attend to, so they were not able to be there, and no one from opposition showed up. So unfortunately, there was no quorum. This meeting is reconvened for Monday at 9 a.m. Tomorrow. I am hoping that everyone will be there, who can be there, who's on the island right now, including opposition, because I also want to just remind folks that when MP Marlin, the elder, was basically off island for 7.5 months, PFP is who kind of held down quorum so that the business of Parliament could continue. I think that's something, whether you're opposition or coalition, you should at least let the business move. Like, I guess they were trying to maybe prove a point taken. But yeah, now's the time to return Parliament to its constitutional requirement of 15 MPs. So hopefully tomorrow's meeting will see the credentials approved, and then we can sort out the swearing in of Mr. Bruch and Mr. Kotai. Also happening this week is a visit by the Tweede Kamer. So a delegation of the Kingdom Relations Committee of the Tweede Kamer of the Netherlands is going to be visiting St. Martin and the House of Parliament. As vice chairperson of the Committee for Kingdom Relations of the Parliament of St. Martin, I will be receiving them. And some topics that we usually discuss when the Tweede Kamer comes down is collaboration in the kingdom, finances, climate change, and most recently, we've also discussed student issues. There's been a lot of talk about, how can we improve students from St. Martin who go up to the Netherlands to further their studies. So looking forward to that. And the reason why I am actually going to have to be the one receiving the Tweede Kamer then is because MP Grisha Heilige Martin is MP no more. The new government was sworn in on Friday, the 3rd of May. So MP Heilige Martin has taken up the position of Minister of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Traffic and Telecommunications, and thus the chairperson spot for Kingdom Relations is vacant. So I'm the de facto chairperson until such time as we elect someone new for that role. So I wish the new government all the best, and we'll get to that a little later on as well. Also happening in the next coming 2 months is IPCO. We're traveling to the Netherlands, to The Hague for the IPCO summer session. I'm looking forward to that because it will be first time now for especially the newer faction leaders, MP Roseberg, etc., to go to IPCO and to engage with our counterparts from the Netherlands and from Curacao and Aruba. Aruba, politics in our sister islands is a little tumultuous as here is, if not more. So I'm definitely looking forward to touching base with them and updating on several topics that have been a point of discussion for the last couple of IPCOs. Of course, my pet topic, which is improving the regional travel between the islands. We had an update on that in October. So I'm not sure if it will be featured on the agenda this time around, but there are other items, most notably climate change. Having gone to the climate justice camp and participated in that here on St. Martin, that I do want to continue to raise as we travel up to IPCO for that. So that'll be June, and then we will enter the summer recess, of course. But there will be still things going on with PFP. We'll still do the live stream as often as we can, hopefully with some guests coming in to spice it up a bit. And then moving on, I have one more piece of business before we get to what I think everyone has tuned in for. So as some of you may know, we actually started a separate foundation next to the political arm of PFP called Projects for Progress. The intention of Projects for Progress is to move forward in the opinion or the point of view that any project that is good for community development and people development should be good for everybody. It doesn't matter if it's got projects for progress in the name or just projects to us or whatever. Our intention is to make it as accessible to everyone as much as we can. Right now, we are holding an open call for interested persons to volunteer to help serve as board members or committee members. And if you're maybe a high school kid that needs some community service hours, planning events, etc., that type of experience, this is also for you. Feel free to reach out. We do have some amazing project ideas that are coming down the pipeline, interactive workshops to long-term skill development projects. So later on, we will be sharing the sign-up form for that to register your interest. One such topic is definitely going to be Plan for Progress, which is going to seek to provide access to small-scale agricultural initiatives that you can do at your home, or if you have land. Last time on the live stream, I spoke about the fact that the Prime Minister of St. Vincent was renting his land, his personal land, to local farmers at the price of $1 a year, just to allow them to be able to grow their crops and sell their yield. So definitely, look out for that form, or if you want to reach out, you can hit us up on either our Facebook page or our Instagram page, and we'll be happy to just hold your name until the time comes to move forward. So keep that in mind. And now we're gonna go on to, like I said, what everyone's kind of tuned in for, and for that, I'm gonna ask my in studio guest, surprise guest, to wheel around to this side so that we can continue forward with this particular topic. It doesn't. Yeah. We got this. Technology.
Hello, Minister. I am back.
Yes. All right. So I asked MP Peterson, former MP Peterson, sorry.
Former civilian.
Now civilian Peterson, citizen Peterson, as they would say, to come in for this live stream so that we can take your questions directly. I don't like to play the telephone game, so I said, let me just bring the man himself here. You had a good carnival?
Oh yeah.
I could see it. Tanned.
Nice.
You tanned.
Oh yeah. Parade was nice. Judo was nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well.
Glad it's over.
So as everyone knows, elections were January 11th, 2024, and an intention to form a coalition was signed after that, and then we moved forward with the process in which parties had to, put forward their candidate ministers for screening. 1 second. I know how to fix that. Sorry, I forgot to give him his mic. Thank you for letting me know. Yeah. All right. Give it. Gotcha.
You hear me now?
Thank you so much. Yes. So
Citizen. I
should
love
be
it.
able to hear Citizen Peterson now. So yeah, so we submitted. Every party had to submit their candidate ministers. Now I do have to say that throughout our discussions and also hearing through the grapevine, it already became apparent to us as a party that Raeyhon was not necessarily the most desirable candidate for them as Minister of Rami, which usually tells me that we're moving in the right direction. Further to that, candidates started the screening process, and I think I'm going to invite Ray to kind of share as from his perspective, because I, as party leader, was only responsible for communicating certain messages to them, also informing them when they can go pick up their paquet of documents that they needed to fill out and such. So I'm gonna let you take it away and explain how the process went.
Yeah, so basically, around, I think it was around February. We were approached by the then formateur, now Prime Minister Luc Michelina, as the proposed candidates to be screened. We received a list of things that we had to basically give. So your tax papers, etc., that you had to have a declaration of good conduct, that you had to have a SSV declaring, etc. So a couple of also from the receivers. So we gave all of that information, and I think within the next week, some additional information was asked from the formateur to everyone, I think. And I believe that Neil Patrice delivered that as
Yeah.
well within a week after. And after that, it was sort of a waiting game. And this was since February. And I must say that throughout the process, the meetings that the then formateur had with the governor, he did not inform us of what happened in the meeting, but basically gave the candidates a synopsis as to where the process is at the moment.
Yeah.
And to our surprise, I think it was around April or
Yes.
and April or March when
I think I came back from my trip around the 14th, so around the 15th.
yeah
Yeah, we were informed that well, we were informed the week before actually,
yeah
prior to my trip. Yeah,
informally
informally informed
um
that there were concerns with Raeyhon's screening process, and we were basically told that he that his national decree to appoint him as a minister would not be signed off, which of course was weird for us because we had made sure to check everybody's background. We tried to do that as a party,
before we set ourselves up
which
to fail.
is something that I heard the former minister of finance speak about in press briefing. But fun fact, we've been saying that since 2020, that if parties were able to, or if they took it upon themselves to screen as much as possible before putting people on the list, that you would kind of avoid the whole can he or can she be a minister question. Yeah.
Yeah, so and since then, we of course internally we already knew that if it reached to that point, we will fight it.
Yeah.
Because legally, we were already, we like Melissa said, we already did our research. And after a while, it sort of became a little tense
Yeah, definitely.
behind the scenes.
And I think I can share a bit more about that as party leaders. So I
Mm.
have to say that I'm still trying to find a reason as to why um, there is no, I guess, animo to sign the decree for Rayon, and it's essentially because of this. We know the details of Rayon's case. It's something that as a party, we took it upon ourselves to be as transparent as possible. We knew from 2018 when the accident happened, and you can imagine what that was like for me as a party leader, for someone who had just come into my organization or to be established organization, to not hear from him for like 3-4 days, and then wonder what's going on, and then to see the article in the paper talking about what was done, the fight, and I'm like, fight,
Yeah.
and then as soon as he was able to, he updated us. We literally had a meeting in 2018 to explain what had happened, exactly what had happened, and then
And I was
to
lucky enough that it was all caught on camera.
exactly, it was all caught on camera, and then we viewed the video and we were like, okay, no, this is absolutely nuts, because essentially you were accused of assaulting a police officer, and that brought you to our
While I
court
was
system.
actually a victim of police brutality.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that was but you see, after the accident, of course, I did not go public with it because I had to appeal. And when I appealed, of course, the judge in the court case said that if the situation did not look out the hunt because of the police, that you would have not even gotten prosecuted.
Yeah.
Because first of all, you were not in the wrong. You actually saved the other gentleman's life who was driving, and that your reaction right after the accident was justified, and that's also why I did not receive any penalty
Yeah.
for the so-called push, but acquitted for everything else, of course.
Yes.
In no way did we ever disrespect the police or did not listen to the police. All of that was basically what the media portrayed to kind of save face, and the internal report from internal affairs from the police also said that the police was wrong. Me and my father were invited to the police station after the accident, where the same officer formally apologized to me and my dad in front of our lawyer. And yeah, it was and after that it was just just a waiting game. But
Yeah.
the only reason I did appeal as a sitting MP then was to make sure that in the case that we would have to take office, that we actually can.
Yeah.
And the judge literally said, well, according to this verdict, you now do not have a criminal record. You've never had a criminal record, so you should be good.
To be a
So
minister,
to be
actually,
a
it was the
minister,
joke that he made.
yes, that was the
And that
literal
I
joke that he
and
made.
that I think is what is most is what's most fascinating to me, because I want to also take it back a bit to why we screen. Firstly, 2020, that was one of our first meetings in Parliament after getting elected. Literally, I think within a few days, within a week of orientation, we had this meeting, um, in which you know then Prime Minister Jacobs was brought to Parliament to weigh in on that screening process. And I myself gave a whole, I think that was the longest I've ever spoken in Parliament, actually, to explain that yes, no, a screening process definitely needs to exist for candidate ministers, as is with most high positions that deal with public money, money in general, and that require a certain degree of integrity and ethics. I explained in that meeting that we have this LB that essentially was adopted from the Netherlands Antilles, and even didn't exist in the Netherlands Antilles until 1994. Miguel Poirier actually is the prime minister that brought this Landsbesluit, this national decree, into existence for the screening of ministers. And in 2013, it was adjusted, it was updated, and then it was taken over by us then. And then in 2014, we had an interesting scenario where we ended up with a sort of instruction then.
Yeah.
And I can actually just read it in the words of the former prime minister, who explained it all in Parliament that day. So she essentially explained three pieces of legislation that are used, which is the National Ordinance Promotion of Integrity in Ministers, National Decree, um, establishing the procedure with regard to the appointment of a minister or a chevmin, and then the decree of October 17th, which then designated the governor to adhere to the adoption of the national decrees for the appointment of ministers and the prime minister until research has been carried out into the appointment of the proposed candidate, which was, of course, then that instruction that kind of came down.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, in this whole process, I was informed that that was never applied to our screening. So I guess that's a question that I would have to ask former Governor Holiday, if he actually applied that 2017, that 2014 decree. Um, but nevertheless, the focus around it, in the former prime minister's own words, was to make sure that their actions and their conduct was one of integrity, one of ethics, etc., and that it did not impact in any way their ability to be a minister. You're dealing with the public's money. We've said it in Parliament numerous times over the last term. In fact, I myself in the Netherlands, when I lived there, have said it publicly on Facebook. I've said it to faces of MPs who came up, especially in the midst of persons, receiving envelopes on tape and such, and saying we control the government and everything. So I think that, that is why we have always advocated as a party for a screening, not necessarily what is being done now, because at times it felt very ad hoc. At times it felt like you answered one set of questions and then you received another set of questions from the cabinet or the governor. And I'm like, okay, but where is all of this coming from? And, I've seen some of the snippets and some of the commentary that, oh, no, that it doesn't suit us. We're complaining against, our colonial whatever. But I think this is not the first time we've tangled with this office. In 2019, if we had not taken the step of addressing, the governor's boss, which essentially is the king, we might not even be here right now to have this live stream with you. You know, PFP wrote that letter protesting the rushed postulation date, which would have prevented us and other new parties from being able to contest the 2020 elections.
So essentially, what we're protesting, in both cases, is not the king, it's not the Dutch colonizers, it's the person who has been put here to represent
Yeah,
said kingdom.
yeah.
That's the nuance that we have to.
And
We
I
have to
think,
make.
yeah, and I think it's important to remember that nuance because there's a viral speech going around right now from an address given, I believe, at Spelman College, and it says, um, it was from an African American woman, and she essentially said, our faces that look like ours in high places really beneficial to us if they continue the same type of behavior that persons usually complain about. And I know that we've maybe not spoken out against the overbearing nature sometimes of the Netherlands in this kingdom relationship in the way that people would like. That's not our style. I'm never going to just spend my time wailing or bemoaning reality and not trying to educate and trying to do different. This is what we're in and this is what we have to move in. It doesn't mean that we can't tweak it and we can't change it. So my question has always been, of course, in an instance of shoving someone barely who essentially almost killed you, does that have bearing on your ability to be a minister? So are we not within then our right to kind of ask the question of, can you explain to me why?
How does that impact,
How does
my
that impact?
integrity and my
Yes.
ability
How does
to
that
function?
impact your ability to approach the issuance of public land in an ethical manner, to approach the issuance of building permits in a sustainable manner that does not encroach on our environment and our public beaches, do not um, to not agree to whatever in terms of contracts, in terms of whether it's garbage, whether it's cleaning the side of the road, in an ethical manner, to not interfere in public bidding processes,
Yeah, I
to
mean,
not maybe get yourself a
yeah,
systemic
yeah,
investigation by
no,
the
but
ombudsman.
that's also one of my questions. Where is the standard? Does a shove that was deemed by the judge to be something that does not deserve a penalty, how does that weigh into a systemic investigation from the ombudsman that alludes to corruption in the
Yeah,
highest office of the
yeah,
country? So, I just want clarity. I just want to know what the standards are, because at this point it is very unclear. And
yeah.
to my opinion, a conflict of interest while you are a sitting minister is a little bit worse than a shove from the past.
Not
So
just that, and I think it's also critical to remember that it's a shove from the past, yes, but it's also a shove that essentially has been ruled understandable. Because I don't know if you can literally scroll back to 2021
hmm
and see the videos, see
I'll
the
I'll
impact.
share it actually with
Yeah,
you
you should
on my
reshare it.
Facebook. Yeah.
But essentially, what has happened now is the decision has been made not to sign the LBA. So what happens? When I look back to what was explained, when that instruction came down after the 2014 elections, essentially the the instruction kind of wanted to move in the direction of setting up a separate entity to monitor this. But then I believe it was from the governor's cabinet itself that suggested let's use the existing Article 21, of the regulation of the governor to basically state that the governor then has the authority not to sign that if he believes it's in higher violation of a law or a matter. So I don't know how this is in violation, but nevertheless, that's where we're at. In fact, it was the governor that also decided back then to enlist the assistance of the National Security Service, which is
Yeah.
VDSM, thus giving them the authority, I guess, to be the relevant screening body. As the Daily Herald article showed on Friday, and Raeyhon received a clean VDSM report, geen bijzonderheden, which is no peculiarities, a clean V, okay? So
And it's funny because the VDSM report, that's what we received 2 weeks after the PG report. So you get the PG report first, and then
Prosecutor General, just to make
yes,
it clear.
and then the VDSM report. My prosecutor general's report basically said the same thing. That there is a case in which you received no penalty, and that was the only basically remark. And then 2 weeks after that, you get the VDSM report that goes through everything.
Yes,
So they follow you. They go to the feitenonderzoek, and also what the PG report says.
yeah,
So in my VDSM report, it starts off by saying that the conclusion is geen bijzonderheden opgeleverd. So there is nothing to report. And then they themselves put volledigheidshalve, it is good to note that Peterson, when he gave his documents for screening, also gave the documents pertaining to his case,
Yeah.
etc., etc. And they also mentioned that he received no penalty, etc., etc., and how the judge justified it. And then I think my last remark was that I did my taxes only in
Yeah.
January or February it was. But I've never had any assets. I don't have any mortgages. I don't have any loans. So according to the Algemene Rekenkamer, to do your taxes is not obligatory until you have something, to do your taxes for.
Yeah.
And I asked them that as a sitting MP, and they confirmed it for me as well. So yes, we did do my taxes just for the screening. But
Yeah.
if that wasn't the case, I wouldn't have done them anyway because I don't have to have, because you only have to do your income tax if you
Yeah.
don't have any other income. So that was also not an issue, and that was it. My video 7 report was 1 page, and I think 2 sentences of
Yeah.
the goodbye.
It's pretty
And
boring.
yeah, so I'm sorry about that, but yeah, so if that's what I received as the answer to my screening, then of course I have to ask the question as to why my decree was not signed.
Yeah.
There needs to be something on paper that shows, okay, because of this rule, you cannot be a minister. If you and it's surprising to me because the governor is also a lawyer, and one of the main principles that you have when it comes to the Dutch law is rechtszekerheid. You cannot penalize any civilian for something that has not been established in law first. So if something is a crime, it would have to be established in the criminal code that this action is a crime. To that same extent, the rechtszekerheid would bring in this case that anybody that puts himself up as minister should be able to determine objectively under which situations, circumstances you would not be a minister.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
at this
Yeah.
point, we have nothing of that, nothing. And the governor in his speech spoke about unwritten constitutional norms, which is basically gewoonterecht. And I disagree with that heavily because that is not how gewoonterecht is established. Actually, a better example as to how gewoonterecht is established is, for example, the gewoonte that when a cabinet becomes demissionary, that they do not make decisions, that they do not sign off on decisions that are of a permanent nature
Yes.
and or hamper the next incoming government. And that has been established as gewoonterecht and also, confirmed by certain judges. And then I asked myself the question, landsbesluiten that have been signed these last 3 months
Yes.
concerning appointments in very high
Firings.
positions
Yeah.
in ministries, concerning the firing of persons in high positions. So I would actually ask why the gewoonte is not looked at in that instance when it comes to the actions, the actual actions of the
Yeah.
governor. Yet a gewoonte is being used to not act in my case.
Yeah.
Legally, to me, it doesn't make any sense.
Agreed. And that again, that's part of the the total lack of clarity. And I want to also state that in 2020 and throughout this last 4-year term, for persons that have commented that we there needs to be a screening law, etc. 100%. We've always advocated for that. The issue is that you had members of the now gone coalition that absolutely did not agree because the belief is, well, I'm from here and I ran on a list or whatever, so I have
I'm
a right.
entitled.
I'm
Yeah.
entitled to
No,
it.
you're not.
And I think I think that's a very strange departure to take because that's absolutely not how any of this works. And we have maintained that it needs to be about ethics, it needs to be about integrity. And when you talk about ethics in terms of being a minister or holding any type of like high position that deals with these types of high pressure scenarios, we're talking about bribery, we're talking about abusing your position, we're talking about embezzlement, we're talking about anything else that would cast a direct shadow.
Talking about nepotism.
Yeah, we're talking about nepotism, anything that would cast a direct shadow over your conduct and your integrity as a minister. And then you have, there's also Article 36 of the Constitution, which I believe says what happens when a sitting minister ends up in an issue. Because, and to make it clear as well, we're not just talking with Raeyhon being the only lawyer that we have asked this, or me just going on the basis of good governance, which is what all of this entails. Because even in corporations, these are the things that really get you fired, basically.
Yeah.
I've always said that CEOs rarely, you see them get booted for minor things. What they get booted for? Violation of ethics, embezzlement, bribery, paying bribes. It just that is where it all kind of rests. So for me, I said, it just did not clop for me, I guess,
Yeah, no.
where
And
the no
and
was
you would
coming
be
from.
right, and you would be right because we are living in a constitutional monarch, It means that the monarch, our king, also has to respect our constitution. The St. Martin Constitution is very clear. In Article 36, like we
Yes.
said, it gives, certain situations in which a sitting minister would have to resign. And one of those conditions is that they would have to get convicted of a crime and also be penalized with a prison sentence of
Yeah.
a minimum of a year.
Yeah.
If that does not happen in whatever conviction that the sitting minister gets himself in, theoretically, according to this article, he does not have to resign.
Yes.
Would a PFP minister resign if they found themselves in any type of situation?
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
off the bat.
And if they didn't, they'd be fired.
Exactly, they'd be fired. We would vote you out.
Yeah.
We've shown that in the past. But if the constitution itself at this moment allows that a sitting minister could have an issue, and not even an issue like mine because I received no penalty.
Yeah.
My actions were deemed not, struck by. But if there was a situation where a sitting minister was held up or was convicted, if his conviction was for, let's say, 6 months, there is absolutely nothing in the constitution that says he has to resign.
Yeah.
So the governor setting his own standard through unwritten constitutional norms, while the constitution itself already gives norms for that same thing. You cannot create gewoonterecht off of an article that is already mentioned in the constitution,
Yeah.
because, like I just said, you are not above the constitution.
Yeah.
That is not how it works legally.
And that takes me back to the point of integrity, because even Article 36 is then relying on the integrity of that minister to say, you know what, I messed up and time for me to step back.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line, because there's certain, look, again, you cannot legislate character. You can legislate to a point, and then you just have to hope that people are going to operate from a point of, I want to see the office that I'm holding maintain its integrity. So I, as the person, need to step back. And that, I think, is what we lack here on St. Martin a lot. Very often when we see, it's very much this, well, no, this is, I have to be it. And I'm like, no. We even said, if now the decree is meant to go up to the Netherlands, if Netherlands decides that they want to side with the governor, which I'm not sure that would happen, but I'm not speaking for anybody, of course. I just think that, like I said, we didn't just consult each other on this. We consulted a bevy of lawyers, constitutional, criminal, civil, you name it. We've asked persons, what do you think, etc. We've gotten even calls from Curacao, from former prime minister saying, I don't understand what's happening, because the details of this case, and this is what being transparent leads to, where then persons are wondering, okay, but then what's the problem? Because that's really what it is. And I think, and even then though, if that is what the route that the kingdom decides to take, okay,
then we respect it.
Then we respect it.
Yeah.
Very easy. Then we respect it, and we move forward. We have made a point of building ourselves as a party where we have options. It doesn't just have to be that people can feel, well, I got X amount of votes and thus I deserve to be minister. It's really just about who is the best for the job. This was the best person for the job. But we have alternatives that are also good for the job.
Of course.
Especially when
and who will have all our support.
and who will have our full support. So that's not even the argument that we're trying to make. But essentially, what this means is that as a party now, and I was very happy to hear the new Prime Minister, Dr. Mercelina, say that one of the priorities he plans to focus on is bringing a national ordinance for screening, because then that will remove the ambiguities.
Yeah, we need some clarity, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, it is my person that is going through it at the moment. But like me and Melissa also spoke about, this is not about me.
Yeah.
It's about getting
And
criteria on paper. Because if this gray area is how we're going to operate on, choosing our executive branch for the last couple of years, this gray area clearly needs to be put on paper. Because
Yeah.
at this moment, we don't know. And I have rights as well, according to the Constitution. The people who you put up as candidate ministers, they also have rights. And at this point, at this specific moment, I have not received anything in writing from neither the governor or the then formateur about anything concerning why my lancement has not been signed.
Yeah.
While I was given the impression for the last 3 months that I am also going to be part of the candidate ministers. So it's not even about us, it's about for everybody that comes after. They should be able
Yes.
to know it is your right as a citizen of St. Martin to know. You have rechtszekerheid. You need to know what your rights are. And in this case, being a minister, if the Constitution mentions it, then I should be able to know exactly as to why I did not pass.
Yeah.
And if the king decides, like I see, to say, okay, no, for this and this reason we cannot pass him. That's no problem. We respect the king. If there are legal ways to go about that, we will also look into them.
Of course.
But we are not going to stop, the formation of
No.
government, or us actually having to run the country because we personally feel that one of our persons needs to be there.
Yeah.
That is not what PFP
No.
is about. Otherwise, we would have played politics long time.
A long time. That's a battle that can be fought aside. We
Exactly.
have a question from Corinne. If the king decides otherwise than his representative in St. Martin, what does that say about the governor's stance? Um, well,
Well, if the governor has two choices, according to Article 21 of the Reglement van de Gouverneur. Either he signs, or when he decides he does not want to sign, immediately, terstond, according to the article, he has to notify the king
so it should have been done
personally.
since Friday, essentially.
Exactly. So if
Yeah.
he did not sign my besluit, or if he received my besluit in the way that it should have been done, voorgedragen as per law, then it should have went directly to Holland Friday. And even more so, the king, King Willem-Alexander, should be aware of my personal launch besluit at the moment.
Right.
How do we confirm that? I don't know. Has that been done? That's a question that
Well,
we would have
I
to.
think that that's something that now, and this is also why we said, let us just, as we mentioned in our post leading up to this live stream, as party leader, I said, let the formation finish, let the swearing in occur, and now you can then, with via the coalition that we are in, get some answers
Yeah.
regarding the specifics of this particular decree, and then it will definitely have to be confirmed by the prime minister if it was indeed sent up
Mhm.
to the kingdom. So. Of course, this was also going into a weekend, Friday. Everything finished.
I finished in the
So
carnival, etc.
I
So we gave
guess
it a
if it
couple
was
of
not
days.
sent Friday, then tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., when the cabinet of the governor starts, it should be sent right away.
Yeah.
So by noon our time, we should know, what the next step that has been taken has been. And
and that's and
as
that's
to
actually
yeah,
all we've been trying to get.
yeah,
I
basically,
mean,
it's a
like,
process,
yeah,
and
it is the
if this
process.
is part of the
You have to
process,
respect it.
then it has to happen.
Mhm.
What I would not have tolerated is to just hear, well, I'm not signing, and then nothing.
You just put somebody else. No, we need to know.
Yes.
And if the governor wants to say no, then according to the law, het
Yeah.
motiveringsbeginsel, you also are bound by the law. You need to give a reason as to why. That's it.
Yeah.
It's
And I think for me too, it's important to also bring up a point that then has been talked about in the media too, which is are we now waiting on a Hoogeraad opinion on
oh
a case regarding a Curaçao
yeah,
candidate minister, Bram?
Bram. So to distance myself completely from Bram, because Bram was convicted for a zedendelict. He was convicted for touching a child.
Child molestation
Yeah. So when you look at what happened, first of all, he was convicted in Holland. So the system there, when it comes to Zedendelicten, it is very specific.
in 2002, I think.
2000, 2004, I think it
Yes.
was. Yeah, back then. Pre us as an autonomous country, in the Netherlands and these times.
Yes.
The Dutch legal system has a very specific regulation when it comes to Zedendelicten and how long they stay in a strafblad.
Right.
And what is happening right now with Bram is very simple. Curaçao has a law in which the screening has been codified. Our laws for ordering integriteit of ordering ministers only applies to ministers after they swear in. We do not have a national ordinance that applies to ministers before they
Before
swear in. And Curaçao does. Curaçao is the only one that has an actual, very rigorous screening law, but
screening law.
but they do. And within that screening law in Curaçao, laws for ordering integriteit ministers, it says in Article 7, I think it was, that a minister who has been convicted of a misdrive cannot be put forward.
Yeah.
So that is an article in Curaçao.
Yes.
In Bram's case, he had a conviction, but because it was so long ago and because he was so publicly embarrassed, etc., the judge said, in your case, you are guilty, but because you have already went through the public
The
scrutiny,
humiliation, yeah.
the humiliation, you have already been penalized enough, and therefore you don't get a straf of maatregel. In my case with the push, the judge said the push itself was not strafbaar because of what happened.
Yeah.
So the act, it's totally different,
Yeah.
and the type of crime is totally different. And also, the Hoge Raad is looking at the interpretation of an article in the Curaçao National Ordinance.
Yeah.
We do not have that national ordinance here in St. Martin, so it does not apply to us at all. So even if the PG's case by the Hoge Raad condemns Bram again, it has absolutely nothing to do with me or St. Martin because that law does not exist
and
in St. Martin.
I do want to say that it was communicated to me as party leader, and I'm not not necessarily anything confidential that I'm stating because The governor himself mentioned, he's using constitutional norms and unwritten
Unwritten
rules,
constitutional norms.
and
Yeah.
such. It was explained that this is something that he is waiting on. Not that he has been ordered to wait on this. I want to also make that clear. But that he has chosen to wait on this, and I think that to me is where I kind of I kind of wonder, what is the thinking? And I asked, in a meeting that we had, I asked point blank, if it is about integrity, explain to me where the emotional reaction of shoving someone that has almost killed you in a drunk driving accident, what that has to do with integrity. And I refused, and I'll say it, publicly. I refused to pull back Raeyhon as a minister candidate, not because I feel like I have to force through, but because I'm not going to, for any Sin Matina, paint them with the same brush as someone who was convicted of child molestation, guys. And I think I wanna make that abundantly clear, because I've always said we have harped on about it enough in Parliament. Not every conviction is a conviction in that sense of, there are things that are defendable and there are things that are not. Someone almost kills you, because I have been in car accidents. I've had people hit me in traffic. I've gotten out of the car, and in my emotion, I've literally punched the hood of their car and dented it. I could have been convicted for property damage. Would it have been understandable? I think so. But in that moment of almost dying, I think,
Even the judge said it was justifiable.
yeah,
If the judge said that you should not be punished, I
exactly.
want to know
And
where.
I don't think anyone should put themselves higher than the borders of their capacity, in the sense of, a judge has said this, the prosecutor themselves, in your verdict, we all received it, again, in total transparency, that was submitted as part of your screening. It literally says on page 6 and
The
7
BDSM commended me
that had
for
you
giving
not
that
been
deliberation.
brought to court by basically false allegations, we wouldn't even be here, guys. So I think, it's also important to think about that. And again, I ask everyone to look yourself in the mirror and say, well, I've had an emotional reaction in a moment of danger, and now does this mean that I cannot be a minister in my own country? And that is why the constitution exists as it is. That's why our Landsverordnung exists as it is, to look at what happens after. Because, in many of the people that we consulted throughout this journey, many of them said, okay, but the conviction is like, it's a station that we've passed already, terceira station.
Yeah.
So what? And it doesn't have any bearing on your ability to function as a minister. You didn't, yeah. So I think that it calls for that conversation to continue. And like I said, we've always said that there are things that need to be discussed in this country as we continue to grow, and this is one of them. And I'm looking forward to whatever screening law does come. We ourselves have looked into
Yep.
adapting curacos, because curacos is rigid.
Yeah.
Um,
We would have to change our constitution. We
yes,
actually did the research already to make a screening law
yes,
the last term in Parliament, and we came to the conclusion that if we would want to take over the rigorous one of Curacao, that indeed the same articles that we mentioned, Articles 34 and 36, we would have to change them
yeah,
because they
because
would
they talk about
contradict.
after being a
Yeah,
minister, but the
exactly.
Landsverordnung in Curacao talks about before you're a
Yeah,
minister.
so we
You
would
can't
have to
have a
change
conviction.
our
Yeah.
constitution completely in order to take over that. So then maybe we would not have to take that specific law, but we do have to look into adding,
Yeah.
at least in our current integrity vordering law, in which we do give something about the pre-process before you become a minister.
Yes. So Yolanda Heemskerk asks, so ministers are holding two ministries, so it's known who the governor proposed as ministers. Yes. So essentially, right now the Ministry of Vrami is being held by the acting Min Vrami, which is Veronica Janssen Webster. She's the Minister of VSA, and that is essentially something that was discussed
Yeah,
in coalition.
we
So
agreed
that's
on that.
fine.
Yeah.
And the intention is, of course, like I said, Monday, tomorrow, we should know more about what has happened with Raeyhon's decree. And once we have a timeline on that, then we will make the decision. Well, we'll see
Yeah.
if it is returned and it's a sign it instruction that is given, or if not, like I said earlier, then we have our alternate already preparing to be
get screened.
screened,
Yeah.
and then we will move forward from there. That's really it. But it's to look. Yes, a young country. We are still a young country, but these are the ways that you test these things, and you kind of see what needs to be tightened up to
Yeah.
prevent this type of essentially, one could call it interference, even, because again, I can't really see, it's tough as a party leader, as a faction leader, to answer questions from people in the business community who have reached out and said what's going on. Because again, throughout our campaign from 2019 up until the last one, when we are asked this question about the accident in 2018 from Raeyhon, we've been very transparent with everyone, all supporters, members, candidates, etc. We've explained the nitty gritty of it. We consulted several times with persons. Will this be a hamper? And they were like, no, actually, it should be good.
And for me too, the moment that we decided that we were going to put myself up as a candidate, and we gave them the information, if it was such a clear issue, then why wasn't it communicated to us from then? To maybe put forward somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's the lack of clarity that I'm talking about, because when you look at Article 21 of the Reglement Gouverneur, it says in very specific cases when the governor is allowed to not sign a lancebesluit.
Yeah.
It has to be in strijd with the charter, it has to be in contravention with the charter, it has to be in contravention with a treaty, or with a Rijkswet, so a kingdom law, or an algemene maatregel van Rijksbestuur. None of those apply when it comes to the signing of my lancebesluit.
Yeah.
That's number one. So then you also have to look at everything else that the kingdom should be, let's say, the watchdog over. And then you're going to look at, the deugdelijkheid van bestuur, etc. But then it refers me back to the aanwijzing, the instruction that you mentioned back in 2014, because I also read the nota van toelichting in the instruction. And what the king then, through his koninklijk besluit, mentioned is very, very peculiar, because he says the formation of a local government and the integrity of the ministerploeg, of the council of ministers, is something that belongs to the responsibility of the autonomous country Sint Maarten.
Yeah.
That's what it says. So the governor having an opinion as to who within the formation has integrity, according to that same nota van toelichting, that is not up to him to decide.
Yeah.
That is up to the autonomous country to decide, because it falls under our autonomy.
In this case, a formateur.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I want to know on paper where the governor wants to take it, because if he does not sign my lancebesluit again, according to the same Article 21, he needs to send it per direct, terstond, to Holland. But what he cannot do is say, oh, I'm just going to hold it for 2 or 3 weeks, or maybe 2 or 3 months, just to wait
for the whole
for the verdict that has absolutely nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
And we cannot have, we cannot lower the standard of the governor's office to that extent, that we're just going to have to wait without the minister with one of the most important ministries for the country, just because he feels that, maybe the speculation is that that opinion might be in my favor and whatnot.
Yes.
And what if it is according to him? The damage that I have received now for the last 2 months, trying to tarnish my name.
Yeah.
Where do I take it then? Do I sue him then civilly? So it's you're putting us and the country in a very peculiar spot. But like I said, I am willing to be the scapegoat for it, because we deserve some clarity. Every future minister of this country deserves to know exactly before the screening in what situations they would or would not pass, because we cannot operate any gray area to be of an office that we actually run
and
this
if
country.
and if this is then considered an instance of an integrity breach, well, try not to get into any traffic accidents if you want to become a minister.
But give your brother and the mother of your child land. That's okay.
Anyway,
So,
but yeah, so that is essentially the everything that has been happening. Like I said, we were waiting for the process. Well, it's still not technically completed, but as far as swearing in a new government, that step has been taken. I also want to take this time to say that, I am still very proud as PFP to still be part of this, especially with Patrice heading off to the Netherlands soon. And I can't wait to do winter clothes shopping so that he doesn't freeze. But definitely looking forward to seeing the change and the I guess the dynamic approach that he's going to take to that post.
hopefully a good change of tone.
Yeah, very much looking forward to that from Patrice. So that was essentially the formation process, guys. And now watch all the views drop. No, but we don't have much else to talk about. I just wanted to kind of round off by discussing Carnival a bit. I hope everyone had a good and safe Carnival. We round off tonight, right? Yep. So I'm looking forward to that. I've seen mixed feelings from everyone. Persons feeling like it was great. It wasn't so great. They enjoyed it. They didn't enjoy it. And then others who lived in the village as they usually do, and definitely thought that it was the best Carnival ever. I myself went to Concert X. I want to publicly say again, big up to King James for that show. It was electrifying. I loved it. I love seeing King Verse on stage again, Ebony, all of them come out on stage. Definitely a vibe. So hoping to see that show continue for future carnivals. And there is also something that I wanted to kind of touch on when it came to local news. So we all saw the article, and this is maybe a bit of a pivot, but this is also, where it comes talks about transparency and how we can take steps forward. So I participated in the protest march for the old house in French Quarter. Now that's going up to the north side, right? And this is something that we've talked about as well from the context of Rami and what can be done to protect our heritage and our historical sites basically on the Dutch side. And you have the administrator now saying that he's been waiting on some feedback, etc., on from the collectivity to purchase the land, because he can't halt auctions if you're not going to make a serious offer and such.
Yeah.
And it dials back down to us and how we want to approach things such as Mullet Bay, such as other monuments that maybe are held by private families that are in disrepair, that maybe the government would want to take over from them and such. And I said, in an interview that I gave at that march, that I want to see the willingness then of families to maybe donate, or sell it for a symbolic amount, but don't try to nickel and dime for $5-10 million the country if you really claim to be about heritage and such. And I think it was an interesting article for me because this is a saga that it's beyond. It needs to be on Lifetime or Netflix. But definitely something that I wanted to just kind of mention because I think I also talked about it last time that I went. And the last thing I wanted to say before we sign off, hurricane season is coming and nobody wants to hear it, but nevertheless, it's a reality. So we are in May. I want everyone to start doing your hurricane checklist, check your roofs. With the heavy rain we had, should be easy to identify any leaks. I myself found a little leak. So I've already, told my dad we've got to get some zinc nails to get that sorted.
Yes.
Start looking for your battery packs, your flashlights. You can get battery packs by Blue Point, Bull Chance, etc. Cartules. I love that they sell a pack of flashlights. You can get your batteries there. They can stock your inventory, your non-perishables, canned foods, me and my crackers and everything. Yeah, no, lifesaver. And also know your shelter. So know which shelter applies to you based on the district you live in and such. And I think with the heat that we've been having and such, I don't want to put both mouth on nothing, but always be prepared. When Irma came around 2017, I felt and everybody kind of realized we were wholly underprepared. I think because it'd been so long since we had one. So just
I
make
mean, also
sure.
we were instructed to work on the day of
That's true.
Irma.
That's
I
true.
remember.
I don't want to,
I was
that's
a
a
civil servant then.
whole lot of discussion. I was a UTS.
But yeah,
Yes, Colby has no shelter, but I think that is something that we actually wrote. It's on the list, is what I can say. Yeah. There is a list of things that we would like to accomplish once we have our Minister of Rami in place. But nevertheless,
we are working with
we are working with the acting
Minister.
minister to
Yeah,
see what can be urgently then addressed.
for sure.
At least within the time that we
I
have.
can say that the management department has been working throughout the weekend
Yeah,
as well.
with the rain.
With
Yeah,
the rain, when it comes to the pond overflooding, we have been on top of it, and Minister Webster then, uh, yeah, Veronica, she has also been on top of it, and we have been in contact straight throughout the whole weekend to make sure that we our roads are safe.
Yes.
Because we have a lot of people on the road right now. It's still carnival, so
Yeah.
that flood
Yeah.
that flood warning wasn't easy.
Yeah. So just to continue checking that and make sure to update yourself. And as soon as, well, I check the National Hurricane Center every day. So I'm basically trying to just encourage others to do that because you never know what might pop up. So thank you again to everyone for tuning into this live. I hope that we've explained the process a bit better so that
And
it's
if
a
you
little
have
more clear. And
questions, let us
yeah,
know because, like I said, I am 100% willing to be open and transparent
Yeah.
about my case. I think that's always been frowned upon these last couple of years. In regards to the whole secrecy of the screening, but we work with transparency. PFP works with the principle of transparency, and we take it to the fullest. So we have nothing to hide. Let the people judge.
Yeah.
But these are the facts, and this is the case.
basically. So, and thank you to those who asked questions in the live today. And yeah, next week we will be back And I wish everyone a great week moving forward. So have a good one.